Puts up a three. And a goal!
Bearcat Blitz. The threes are flowing a lot more over the past couple games for the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team. He is Neil Meyer. I'm Russ Heltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. Neil from Rivals Cincinnati site for the front office news.com. Check us out there. And before we get to the full show, I want to tell you about Bet Online. Is the world's most trusted betting platform. BetOnline is, and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. A ton to talk about on today's show, and we will be discussing the win over BYU, plus getting into a little bit of a preview of Utah as Cincinnati keeps inching their way back to life in the NCAA tournament realm. Not there by any means just yet. Still a lot of work to do, starting with a game they are widely expected to win on Tuesday night. Their largest betting spread as a favorite against Utah on Tuesday since they beat Arizona State. Did not cover as 10-point favorites against Arizona State, but won that game nonetheless. Neil, let's start with the win over BYU here. Cincinnati lights them up for 84 points, a complete flip from the blowout loss they suffered at BYU a couple weeks ago, and it was highlighted by the most points scored this season by a Bearcats player in Jizzle James. He goes 9 of 14 from the field, highlighted the Florida air, kind of reinvigorating him, joking about that in the press conference after the game. He came into the game, Neil, hitting just 19 threes total this season. Well, he cashed 6 of 8 on Saturday night, was aided by Day Thomas, who continues to scorch from the field, over 60% shooting in the past 2 games. He was 7 of 9 overall and hit his only 3-point attempt. And the Bearcats went 10 of 20 from outside, their first time hitting double-digit threes in a game since right around Thanksgiving of 2024. This is the kind of offense that we expected to see all season, Neil, and the kind of flare out, flame up performances from a guy like Jizzle James in his second year, fully in control of this offense he looked like on Saturday night. We expected to see this more often. Better late than never.
Yeah, overall, Russ, let's talk about Jizzle James and Day Thomas. Obviously, over the last 2 games, I mean, look at what those two have done since Day Thomas has been in the starting lineup. In
Huge
the
flip.
UCF win and the BYU win, Thomas and James have combined for 74 points over the last 2 games. Obviously, Jizzle James finished with a career day, 24 points, 6 of 8 from behind the arc on Saturday. And Russ, when Jizzle James finds his confidence, I think that was what he was kind of missing in the beginning of the season. But from the post that he shared with his father shared of some text messages that went back and forth, it seems pretty clear as day that Jizzle James has found his confidence back, and that's a huge sign for Cincinnati, especially heading into this back half of the Big 12 play. Man, was he electric on Saturday, Russ. And then on top of Jizzle James, let's talk about Josh Reed too. He was electric.
I was just about to bring him up.
Josh Reed finished with a career high 12 points. His first dunk in his college career. That was huge. But most importantly, in this one, Russ, defense wins games. And Dylan Mitchell and Josh Reed's defense on Igor Demon was phenomenal on Saturday. I mean, obviously, Demon hits the huge 3 right before half, but in the end, you don't want to see him foul there. But that was a shot that any NBA player makes, and that was what that shot was. But to hold him to just 12 points on Saturday, and BYU struggled to get anything going there in the second half, which was a great sign for Cincinnati's defense.
Yeah,
but
I think they shot BYU 33% from the field in the second half after shooting 59% in the first half.
Especially after 22 points in the paint in the first half to only 6 in the second. So that's a great thing. But Cincinnati also dominated the glass, Russ, 32-17. That's a huge takeaway as well, because when you win the rebounding margin like that, you're going to expect to win games. But Russ, it's safe to say that the Cats have found their confidence, and it shows. And for Jizzle James, you mentioned the Florida Air. What I thought was interesting in the post-game press conference, Russ, was they remembered the last shot versus BYU, the realistic three at the final seconds that while you're up by 28 and you shoot a three with as the play clock's expiring. It was kind of a disrespectful move, and Jizzle James even said it himself. If you disrespect us, we're going to remember that. And Russ, you and I haven't heard anything like that all season. And so it was good to see the sophomore guard
Some fire.
It was good to see him step in and kind of acknowledge that and put this team on their back when they needed a win the most. So, big one tonight, looking for the first 3-game win streak of Wes Miller's era in the Big 12 play. Let's talk about it, Russ.
It's going to be it should be a win. They should be able to get this job done, and as long as they can hold Gabe Madsen at bay, unlike they were able to do for the most part in the first game against Utah, cannot let him get to the free throw line as much as he did. But tying a bow on this game most recently this weekend, 32-17 rebounding advantage. They dominate the offensive glass 11-3. Aziz Bandago, when he's efficient and when he's making lobs, it's hard to stop this offense. 9 points, 6 rebounds. He led the team in rebounds, shot 4 or 5 from the field. Dan Skillings comes off the bench, gives them a bench presence along with Josh Reed. Those two guys combined for 20 points off the bench on 8 of 12 shooting. And Skillings with 5 rebounds, Josh Reed with 2 to go with that. The depth starting to show through a little bit here, with obviously still work to do to be able to notch that NCAA tournament spot. What felt like a dead kind of possibility just a couple weeks ago. I left them out for dead. I mean, everybody that I've talked to in the media base around Cincinnati was like, yeah, they're not making the NCAA tournament. This team is absolutely cooked. Dodgeball flips things. Dodgeball helps them find their joy for the game again. Well, not really loving the fact that got to the media, even though I think he was the one, Neil, who said that in the post-game press conference after.
He said it on post-game radio in Orlando.
Right. He was the one who revealed it to the world. So we're going to pick up and run with that, Coach, if you're going to reveal that to us. It's a really great nugget in a cool narrative, as he described it in a negative way on Saturday. Just wants to keep everything focused on what's coming ahead. And I get that for sure from the coach's perspective, but just one little flip, one little change of the routine can sometimes be what you need as a human being to get back in your rhythm and find yourself as a team. And they're starting to find themselves right now. Jizzle James, Neil, what, a month ago, he was on John Hollinger, the Athletics' John Hollinger's kind of mid-round, late first round, day 2 picks to watch in the NCAA tournament field or NCAA field moving forward the rest of the season. He completely fell off a cliff after that acknowledgement, but was masterful in front of a litany of NBA scouts, including Jose Calderon, who I couldn't believe. Dude's made millions in the NBA, and he's back grinding the pavement as a scout. But he had eyes on Jizzle James, a lot of eyes on Jizzle James, and the guards wowed in front of a really, really high-level audience on Saturday night. We'll see if the Bearcats faithful can bring it again on Tuesday. I'm sure they will, in what is expected to be another close to packed house against Utah. 84-66 win over BYU, a quad 2 victory for the Bearcats, and it now sits them right now as we speak at 50th in the net, 53rd in KenPom, and they hold a obvious 1-7 record in quad 1, 6-2 record in quad 2 games. Neil, they are about to play their first quad 3 game of the season, one of just 2 quad 3 games scheduled left. These are must-win games against Utah and TCU moving forward the rest of the season. Utah tonight on February 11th, and at home against the 81st ranked team in the net, TCU, as of this recording on Saturday, February 22nd. Sandwiched in between those 2 trips, quad 1 opponents, out to Ames, Iowa, and out to Morgantown, West Virginia. Neil, if they can go somehow, some way, figure out a way to pull off four wins in the next 4 games, you're going to be sitting super pretty for an NCAA tournament spot. Obviously, that's a lot to ask, especially with that road game against Iowa State, one of the best teams in the country and number 10 in the net. But UC's offense is playing as well as any in the country right now. They're moving the ball very well, as highlighted by 17 assists in Saturday's game. 4 from Day Thomas. He led the team, and there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players that had multiple assists in the game, moving the ball well and trying to will themselves back into NCAA tournament contention. Take a quick break here, and then we'll get to the offensive side of the ball for Cincinnati. Take a quick break after that, get to the defensive side as we fully break down this matchup against the Utah Utes coming up on Tuesday night. Neil, Cincinnati's offense versus Utah's defense is where we will start first. An interesting yet very winnable matchup for Cincinnati against Utah on Tuesday night. They're 8.5-point favorites as of this recording. Over-under sitting at about 138.5 to 139.5, wherever you're shopping for that over-under. Cincinnati, as I mentioned, 50th in the net at 14-9 overall, 53rd on KenPom. Utah 79th in the net and 85th on KenPom. They are 13-10 overall. And when I look at this matchup for Cincinnati's offense, Neil, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep finding a way to push the pace, which they should be able to do. Once again here, they took 58 shots on Saturday night. That's right around where you want to be. 58 plus shots in every game the rest of the season should have Cincinnati looking pretty solid on offense, and keep finding a way to unlock the shot making of Jizzle James, who made 6 threes in that outing. Another 3 to 4 here, 2 to 3 here. We'll have Cincinnati sitting in a very, very good position. It's going to be tough, though. Utah solid against the three-point ball, 113th nationally in three-point defense, allowing just 32.4% from the floor. But, Neil, 40% of their opponent's shots come from outside. That's 141st nationally, according to the Bart Torvik, and they allow 23.9 total threes attempted per game. That's 250th nationally. There's going to be an opportunity here for Cincinnati to chuck up the three ball, to move the ball around the arc, and then ensuingly unlock those lobs like they were able to do to Dylan Mitchell, like they were able to do to Aziz Bandaogo in the BYU game. If it ain't broke, don't fix it type of mentality for UC's offense tonight.
Yeah, no, most certainly. I'm right there with you. Obviously, that's going to be the key. And to be honest, Russ, it all starts with Day Thomas. Since Day Thomas has came into the lineup, Cincinnati has significantly pushed the tempo. And to be honest, it's allowed Jizzle James to play off the ball into the 2 position, which is something he did all year last year. So that's also a great sign to see. But with those two,
a little bit more comfortable spot for Jizzle. Kinda.
Yeah, so for those two, that's going to be the key, Russ. You say 58 shots. I want to see 60 plus tonight.
Yeah.
I
Which is
feel
possible. Utah, Neil, right on that number, 59.8 shots allowed per game. That's 254th nationally this season.
Yeah, and the way Cincinnati has moved the ball around the perimeter the last 2 games in Orlando and at home versus BYU, this could be a matchup where we saw Jizzle James take advantage of it. But for me, Russ, could this be the game where Simas Lukosius has the get-back game that we've been looking for for the last, month and a half or so?
It's been a while since he went off, that's for sure.
Could this be the night where poor Utah 3-point defending team allows Simas to get going? Because you can't defend Simas, Jizzle, Dan, all of them from 3, especially with the lob force and Dylan Mitchell and Aziz Bandaogo. So it's going to be interesting to see, does that 3 ball open up for Cincinnati? And Russ, to be honest, if Cincinnati hits 8 threes in this game, I want to go 8 or 10 threes, 8 to 10 threes. If you can get that at least and go 50% from 3, you're going to be in good hands tonight. But we want to see that number significantly higher, of course, than 8 to 10. But overall, Cincinnati just has to continue doing what they're doing. They have their confidence back. They have their swagger. They have their joy, it looks like. Go out there and continue to play and have fun. If they do that, this should be a game where Russ, that 8.5-point favorite, should be a big double-digit win, you would think, especially here at Fifth Third Arena, especially if the crowd shows up like they did on Saturday.
I'm right there with you, Neil. Utah 94th in adjusted tempo this season. Unlike BYU, they're not going to try to get Cincinnati out of a run and gun type of style. They're going to try to run with Cincinnati, and I would be hesitant about that. People probably looking at the over-under marks for both Utah and UC entering this game thinking, oh, I should smash the under 138, 139. I would be hesitant about playing either side of the total. It's a little bit less, a little bit murkier when you look under the hood for these two teams. And then up front, Ezra Osser. If they can handle him on the glass and maybe get him into some foul trouble, Neil, for a Utah team that allows 20 free throw attempts per game, 237th nationally, that could mitigate an expected cool off for Cincinnati from outside. You're not going to expect them to hit 50% from deep every game and hit 10 threes like they did against Utah or like they did against BYU. Got to find a way to get some of those kind of nitty gritty points. And Utah is a team that's allowed opponents to do that pretty often this season. We'll get to Gabe Madsen and UC's defense versus what is really the only big worry for a Utah team on the other side after this message on Bearcat Blitz. Mr. Madsen. That's what I'm looking at tonight for UC's defense against Utah, Neil. It's a pretty simple to say on this podcast formula. Limit Gabe Madsen to single-digit scoring, and you're going to win the basketball game. Utah 3-7 this season when he's held to 10 points or less. The streaky former Cincinnati shooter 0-4, Neil, when he's held to 7 points or fewer. And it's going to be easier to do that in this stretch than maybe earlier this season because Madsen is extremely struggling right now this season. 38.3% effective field goal rate in conference games. He's shooting 38.4% from the field. You know, as long as they don't let him get to the free throw line 8 to 10 times like they did in the road matchup, which is where he has really made his hay, went 7 of 8 from the free throw line and was the biggest difference in that basketball game was his free throw shooting in the 69-66 loss. I think the Bearcats should be able to roll through Utah. I think this line is a little bit short at 8.5. Give me the Bearcats 75-63 and a very comfortable win. And we'll see if I can move to 19-5 on my season prediction record. Outside of Gabe Madsen, Neil, there's not a whole lot you need to stop in terms of a guy with a high usage rate. He is 5th in the Big 12 with a 27.5% usage rate on offensive possessions for Utah. Stop him, cut the head off the snake, and that body should wither away.
Yeah, no, and I'm right there with you, Russ, too, because you look at the last 4 games for Gabe Madsen, obviously stemming back to Cincinnati, he had 18, but he went 1 of 6 from 3, 5 of 13 from the field, 7 of 8 from the foul line. Here's the difference maker, Russ. In the last 3 games, he has had 15 in the loss to Oklahoma State, where he went 5 from 15. He had 17, where he went 5 of 10 and 4 of 7 from 3 versus Colorado. So that's the numbers that Utah is expecting. 23 minutes.
Colorado, man. Oof, they're so bad.
23 minutes versus West Virginia, and you went 3 of 8 from shooting, 1 of 5 from the three-point line, 0 field goal, 0 free throw attempts. In the Colorado game, just 4 free throw attempts. In their loss to Oklahoma State, who is the worst team, arguably, with Colorado in the Big 12, 2 free throw attempts. Keep Gabe Madsen off the foul line, and Cincinnati should be in great hands. And I think that's pretty simple, too. And, Russ, I know I've talked to Gabe outside of Big 12 media days, off the record and stuff about his return to Cincinnati. He's excited for it, but he even said it. He was like, I don't even think the fans are going to really remember me. So when a player has that kind of mindset coming in, obviously Gabe's career with Cincinnati was kind of uncertain and unlike any other because of COVID and the opt-out and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what may happen tonight. But Cincinnati knows that he is at the head of the scouting report. Obviously, Wes Miller is very familiar with that after the first matchup. But, Russ, keep him off the foul line. I like where you mentioned with that. Keep him off the foul line. And keep Ezra Asar off the boards. If you do those 2 things, you're going to be in good hands. But one thing too, Russ, Cincinnati cannot, and I mean cannot, get out-rebounded by 18 at home again versus Utah. Because you look back at the first game, Russ, with that matchup, they get out-rebounded by 18, 41-23. On top of it, Utah had 19 turnovers. 19. Cincinnati had just 6. And you lose the game by 3. Think about that. I think this is going to be another night where they get the get-back performance. They remember what happened out there in Utah between both teams. And I think it's going to be a great hands for Cincinnati.
What's your score prediction?
Score prediction, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with 84-68. I think Cincinnati eclipses 80 points for the third straight game.
Big old rolling. Neil and I got double-digit victories on the board for Cincinnati tonight. We'll see if we can keep the good vibes rolling at Fifth Third Arena. And as you mentioned, Gabe Madsen, very limited play time in Cincinnati during the 2020-21 season. 2 game appearances, 1.5 points, 1 rebounds, and hit a 3-pointer. I mean, he really wasn't much of a factor at all during the 2020-21 season before opting out and eventually moving on to different pastures for his college basketball career. A return to Cincinnati tonight, though. We'll see if the Bearcats can fully spoil that on the docket this evening. What is that? That game's at 7 p.m. tonight on ESPN Plus. Check that out if you are not going to be able to attend at Fifth Third Arena. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. We'll be back later in the week to discuss what could be a monumental road matchup for Cincinnati, what would be the biggest game of the year so far if they can beat Utah and set themselves up to continue pursuing that return to NCAA tournament contention. Iowa State on the docket after Utah. Can't get caught looking ahead. Have to focus on the Utes. We'll see if they can do that tonight. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz, presented by Bet Online.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a 3. Yes!